10x more valuable for the entrepreneur.
I have a need for problem solvers, and people can think critically and collaborate with others.
You start this journey with maybe an idea or just the idea that you want to work for yourself, right? And bring something meaningful into the world.
It's where the magic is and where the challenge is both.
Welcome back to another episode of the BYU Tech Transfer Podcast. Today we have Shad Woodland and Vanessa Perez. They are from Make Utah. They've done many great things in their life, but most recently Make Utah is their current enterprise. So why don't you guys take a second, introduce yourselves, and then tell us a little bit about what Make Utah is, if that's all right.
Do you want me to start?
Please, you're the visionary.
Make Utah is a flex office, flex R&D business plan. Right. Sometimes we're called a hard tech incubator. It is the end goal here in Utah is an 80,000 square foot facility that's a mix of co-working and prototyping labs and event and casual space.
Yes, very nice. Vanessa, anything to add?
Exciting, isn't it? I see your eyes light up.
It is super exciting. I mean, this is like my world, right? I come from an
Yeah.
engineering background, so this is something that I've seen missing in the Utah ecosystem, and so it's really exciting that you guys are jumping in and taking this head on.
Yeah. We feel that gap as well, which is why, Shad's sort of come up with this vision. And for me personally, I mean, I'm brand new to Make Utah. It's my second day, but we have been talking for about 3 months. But I knew about the project almost a year ago.
Right.
So I've had a lot of professional passion around this project. And I have personal passion behind it because as an inventor, I want this space as well. I need it, and lots of others do in our community. So, well done, Shad.
Yes,
well,
definitely.
so far so good.
It's going great so far.
It's going well so far. And tell me a little bit about your background, just so the audience kind of knows, what you guys have been involved in the past, what you're passionate about, and that led you to Make Utah.
Sure. I guess we'll keep starting with me. So. I have 10 years in banking. I did spend I've been here for 2 years for this project. I did spend the last 10 years in Hawaii. And before that, my dad was the auto shop teacher at American Fork High School from day one to when they closed the program. Okay. So I grew up wrenching on cars and seeing a lot of like mind-blowing builds, right? And certainly changed how I think, right? So... Is that enough?
I mean, that gets you into the mechanical mindset, right?
Yeah.
And when you're in that mindset, I mean, Utah's great for a lot of things. We talked about this before the show, about software specifically, right? But when you see what can be done with hardware, with cars and actually turning a wrench, your brain starts turning in that space. And at least for me, it's hard not to think about it and not to see the opportunity that was missing. So to fill that with Make Utah is super great. And Vanessa, what about yourself? What's your background?
Well, I don't have any kind of a linear background. I'm sort of very versatile all over the shop. You might guess that I'm Australian, so actually come from Sydney, Australia. I have a military background. I served 23 years in the Australian Army with a number of different trades or areas of expertise in the military, from recruiting to... I produced 4 military books. My last role was in civil affairs. And that's what brought me to America, because I met a US Marine, and so we got married, and we too lived in Hawaii for 10 years. We have this lovely connection.
Yes.
Although we didn't know each other there, but we have this aloha connection.
I mean, that's a happy coincidence. Both lived there for 10 years, didn't know each other.
For sure.
Very cool.
And most of it overlapped, didn't it?
Yeah. And I landed in Utah 6 years ago. I actually, I was in the career transition space and supporting military in transition. So that's a very big area of expertise for me and a passion. And ended up coming to Utah to join the IM Flash team as a senior recruiter. And for those that live here, you might be familiar with when IM Flash was manufacturing semiconductors in Lehigh. We went through that transition, became Micron, and then Texas Instruments acquired the site from Micron just about 3 years ago. Okay. So I'd been there for the last 6 years, and 3 months ago decided to leave big corporate and join this startup ecosystem in Utah, and I can't tell you how excited I am about it.
Yeah, well, we're excited to have you be part of the ecosystem. It sounds like you're definitely bringing value into Utah, so that's exciting. Yeah. And now, Make Utah is still in its early stages, so what kind of challenges are you guys seeing right now? What have you done to overcome them? What do you see on the horizon?
That's a really big question. So I've been at this conceptually for 5 years,
Right.
and then moved here 2 years ago for this. And most of the challenges for me have been like Shad growing challenges, right? Because it's hard to measure up to such a big project. This is a big project.
Yes.
Right now, our challenges are, our space is a little over half full,
Okay.
right? We have, so we're getting a few more people in there, and we're getting organized, right? So even putting a board together 6 months ago, I mean, I was very thoughtful about that, and
Right.
and who and why and how, and then meeting Vanessa, and now we have our board, which is kind of our village elders, I call them, and then we have our growth team, and they're polar opposites, and it's a beautiful thing. So making all that work together, and also varying personalities and people in a shared workspace,
Yes.
it's where the magic is and where the challenge is both.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
And Shad talked about our space being half full. We're 15,000 square feet right now.
Okay.
And we've got to give a shout out and some grand appreciation to the founders of doTERRA, who've allowed us this most beautiful space at their headquarters in Pleasant Grove.
Very cool.
And another shout out to Corbin Church, who founded iHub, because he's been just a stellar facilitator in that space. And
Yes.
I suppose that's the first hurdle, is really like, where do we start this? Where do we build it from? And having the space and getting that 6 months ago has really been the catalyst to launching this now and building the community of communities.
Yeah.
But, we still need desks, and we still need, locking drawers, and we still need equipment and tools. And so
some of the very unexciting things about working through a startup like this, right? Like,
Yeah.
you don't think about desks and chairs and roller
Yeah,
mats and
yeah.
mouse pads and things that you need, right? And they're fundamental to moving forward, but
Yeah.
sometimes it's not the exciting part of starting something like this.
Yeah. Well, we're excited about it,
Yeah.
and we can't wait to start getting out there now and asking for people to come and join the movement,
Yeah.
and help us make it happen.
No, absolutely. So with that, with the movement, what would you say, if you were to boil down Make Utah into maybe a mission statement, and maybe you already have one on your website that you're always, pushing or plugging, what would you say the mission statement of Make Utah is?
You take the lead on this one.
There we go.
We noodled on this yesterday.
Oh, very nice.
So I don't
this
know
is front of
the
mind
exact
for you.
words, but really we want to create this space that's dynamic,
Yes.
that unites and connects and brings together engineers and visionaries and imagineers and tinkerers and people that want to collaborate and bring something to life.
Yes.
They have a tangible idea that they want to build and bring to life. So that's the excitement, that's the mission, that's the purpose that we want to
Yes.
launch and
No, I love that,
and build.
because that really is the value that it brings to an entrepreneur, right?
Yeah.
Is that you start this journey with maybe an idea, or just the idea that you want to work for yourself, right? And
Yeah.
bring something meaningful into the world. And so to be able to enter into a space that is, in line with your goals and helping you realize that, and help you get connected with others in that space. Because if you talk to a non-entrepreneur about your entrepreneurial ventures, super disappointing sometimes, right? They're not excited. They don't see your vision. They don't understand why you'd be willing to give up so much to go after this. But if you talk to another entrepreneur about it,
Yeah.
you both feed off of that energy, and that's
Yeah.
tremendous.
Yeah.
If I could add to that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So one of the things she didn't say, which is important to me, is industry, right? So we're not only connecting entrepreneurs, but we're
Yes.
connecting them with industry,
Yeah.
and creating a space that's valuable for the industry
Yeah.
makes it 10x more valuable for the entrepreneur,
Oh, absolutely.
right? Because now we're connecting them in one space. They're working side by side on projects. Imagine you working side by side with an entrepreneur that you recently met and love, and you get each other, right? You
Yes.
just explained that. And then imagine both of you working side by side with some of the top hard tech manufacturers in Utah.
Yes.
You're R&Ding side by side. That, I think, is where the magic happens.
Very cool.
I am so glad you added that, because I come from industry, and I come from an industry where we're looking for that talent.
Yes.
And coming from a recruiting background and a growing talent pipelines background here in Utah, we have a need for this sort of talent as well. We have a need for problem solvers and people think critically and collaborate with others and tinker and come up with ideas and solutions to problems. And we're building that community.
Yes.
And nurturing the daydreamers and the Imagineers of the future that industry really need.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And having that in a physical location, you know, if I were a recruiter for a, you know, hard tech industry, it'd be nice to know where I could go to start to find some of that talent.
Yeah.
So,
and might I also add too, that we know that so many great ideas like are born out of the garage or the kitchen table, and that's where most of them die.
Yes.
Because the dreamer doesn't have access to equipment and tools, the laser cutter, the engineers to help solve it, the mentors to coach and guide them, the IP attorneys to help them, you know, manage the protection of that idea
and they're different
and then bring it
skills
to
as
life.
well, right? Like just because you may be great at inventing or maybe the actual physical hardware development side of it, if you don't understand the IP side of it or the business side of it or the connections with industry, like you said, it can die right there in the
Marketing,
garage.
manufacturing, bring it to market, you know.
Yeah.
And I have brought something to market before. I invented something, designed it, manufactured it, brought it to marketed it all by myself.
Yes.
I didn't have that, the mentors, the manufacturing partners, the ability to scale it, the investment, the ecosystem that we have here just didn't exist where I was trying to build this before.
Having been through that process personally, like, how do you see this as being so much better than going through just by yourself?
Oh, cold shivers.
Oh,
we are creating that ecosystem that allows any daydreamer, inventor, entrepreneur, ideas person to come and have access to the resources to bring their idea to life.
Yes.
That's it.
One of the things that makes it different than going to an engineering firm now or going to an ID firm now is it's far better for high iteration products.
Yes.
Right? So think maybe so it's not hard to go to $150,000 for a dead simple product with an ID firm. And these are my favorite people too. I'm not knocking them. It's just expensive. It's just expensive. So imagine, and one of the reasons is the back and forth with maybe a machine shop or something like this. So there's wait times and all this because they have to put bread on their table. So they need to do production right in these shops. And so they're not often set up for prototyping.
Yes.
And so high iteration product development is a really good value and many times 80% less expensive. So it's still going to cost money, but you can get the same done with 20,000 and 10,000 what you can get done with 150 and 200,000.
Yes. And a tenth of the time, you know.
That's exactly right.
Because a lot of these manufacturing facilities, from experience, you'll send out a quote of a part, something that you think is super simple, and they're like, how much money am I going to make off of this? Basically nothing, right? So it's on the back burner. It never gets done, right? You're constantly hounding them. And I love these guys, right? Work with a lot of manufacturing groups. They are great people. But at the end of the day, it doesn't pay the bills. And so having a space where it is structured around that long-term vision of what these companies are going to become, right, lowers the cost for that prototyping, increases how quickly you can do that iteration and the time that it takes to do that.
And you end up with a very different product too. If your $150,000 is enough to get you 4 versions of a prototype, it's just going to be a different product than if you went through 25 or 50 or 100, and it's going to end up so different in it. So
Absolutely.
And we have so many people in our network like you that have the sparkle in their eye to tinker and solve a problem, who would gladly come and volunteer and donate their time to help an Imagineer tinker and finagle whatever it is that they want to bring to life.
Right.
And you can't get a better invention than that when you're working on it yourself
Yes.
and learning along the way. Like I've got an electronic device up my sleeve. I don't know anything about electronics, but I do know how to pull together a team of people to teach me about electronics as we build this thing together.
Yes.
one thing that Vanessa understands is, so we're going to have $6 million worth of prototyping equipment. It'll really be something. But that is not even a fraction as valuable as the expert that can work that equipment and that knows their way around it and is familiar with it. So it's really access to the experts is the biggest value, and then access to the equipment is definitely secondary. And we have to remind ourselves about that because we are tool and equipment junkies, right? We love a big 5-axis CNC or a laser cutter that can't do anything else, right? That we can't just equipment that we can't get access to anywhere else is really valuable. However, it's not the most valuable.
Right.
Which is where these industry partnerships come in. I mean, I was the community relations manager for Texas Instruments, and with 1,000 engineers there wanting tinker space and tinker time and wanting to coach and mentor and help people design and solve problems. And they can volunteer in work time like so many other great organisations like TI.
Yeah.
It allows this open door to come on in and help us make stuff here.
Yes.
And contribute to building this community. And I think when the tools are ready, the floodgates will open and we'll just have an untapped,
I can't imagine you would have a
level
hard
of
time
talent.
filling that space with eager entrepreneurs who are willing to take advantage of that and make something.
It would be a very unique, never before seen resource, at least the way we're doing it in Utah. And there's only a few in the U.S. that do it well.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and speaking of that, let's talk a little bit about other spaces maybe around the U.S. who are doing similar things and maybe some of their successes, pitfalls that you're trying to avoid, anything that you've learned from other similar spaces.
So Vanessa did a shout out earlier to both doTERRA and iHub because they've been just couldn't do it without them.
Right.
So a quick shout out to somebody that I consider a friend, though our relationship is just a handful of phone calls and emails. Right. So it's Manas Mehandru at MHub in Chicago, is the COO. And MHub, we are modeled after MHub, probably 80% modeled after MHub in Chicago. So this is a successful hard tech incubator.
Yes.
I'll share some of their successes.
Yeah, absolutely.
So they're about 6.5 years old now, I think, at this point. The first 2 years, they were a hodgepodge co-working space for engineers, designers, and technicians, which is what we are now. So we're feeling really good following that pattern, right? So now, in the last 4+ years, they have over $2 billion in VC funds. If you add up all the individual investments in their members' businesses. I think over 1,600 products produced, over 500 patents.
That's fantastic.
And over 5,000 jobs created, families fed, people hired. So, and again, this is just a co-working, there's a lot of co-working spaces in Utah. Imagine one co-working space with that type of impact. This is a really outsized impact on the economy and on individuals. And they've become a real VC magnet. They've become sort of the darling of the state, right? Surpassed all other incubators, accelerators, and like type businesses in that whole region of the United States.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And that's what we're patterned after, right? Make Utah.
Yeah.
That's what we're going to make.
Yeah. And I know we've talked about this a million times, but like that community space and that access to the mentors, and like you said, it's been a magnet to VCs. Coming from an engineering background, that is so foreign to you, right? VCs and private equity and how do I raise capital for this idea that I have? You just have no sense of how that works. So having a space that you can come into who, over time, that's going to become one of the, I would assume one of the main draws of bringing people in there is access to those types of things is just amazing. So.
And we've recently, started building a relationship with a very successful entrepreneur that had a very successful exit recently. And he loves working with us, and we're working on a very exciting project with him. But for him, he wants to have access to this technology and these ideas with a view to potentially investing in the future. And it really is something very positive that, we can provide. Access to these great ideas and great entrepreneurs.
Yeah, absolutely. So still in the early days, but have you guys had any successes, with either individuals in your space or just personally, as you've been building it out?
Do you want me to take the lead? So our space currently has 47 people on the floor, closer to 100 if you include others involved, in the space. 14 businesses. They are... one of them had grown from 1 to 7, so his first 7 employees in the space.
Within months.
Yeah, within just a couple months.
That's tremendous.
We have a business in there that's in 6 different countries, over 1,000 employees. We have a business in there that is currently raising on a $100 million valuation. They're a Y Combinator company.
That's awesome.
We have a company that just moved in. They do exclusively R&D work for the Air Force and the Navy. So they're SBIR, STTR experts.
Very nice. Which is a huge resource. We have a whole podcast about
Aerospace.
SBIRs and STTRs with Linda Cabreas from the Utah Innovation Center. So
We should get them here for an interview with you or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah, we were really excited to have them in the space. Well, let's just go to Vanessa. Let's see what are some of the successes?
I love that we have building this this teen entrepreneur movement as well. And we have a teen entrepreneur I met just very recently. He's still in high school. He's already hired his first full-time employee as a high school student.
That's great.
So I have a real passion around nurturing and building, the daydreamers and the engineers of the future.
Yeah.
Because I know it's needed. But I also feel that we have a gap for girls and women to become innovators and bring inventions to life.
Yeah. Which is hard in STEM just generally, right?
Yeah, so we're going to be creating this movement of Invent Hers and provide all the support and tools and everything that girls and women need to bring their ideas to life. I know every mum out there has probably got 15 ideas in their head, like mums are inventing stuff all the time to solve problems, right?
Yeah.
And I know even, in the last few months talking to my friends going, I bet you've got some ideas, right? And they go, I do, but people just don't know where to start.
Yeah.
We want to open up that door and go, bring your idea in here and let's get you connected. Let's bring it to life.
Right.
So we're going to be kicking that off. That's going to be something we're going to move on pretty quickly, I think.
You did bring up a good point that I forgot to mention. So we didn't intend to be the birthplace of incubators or these entrepreneurial support groups, but there are 4 incubators in our space right now. So we're sourcing people and they're sourcing their own people, and one of them is this teen entrepreneurship support group, and there's some great teens working side by side with serious companies, and I was really happy to see them work out their relationships and start to work together.
Yes.
You kind of can't help yourself. You wouldn't normally poke around in each other's business, but you're working side by side.
Yeah.
And you do. So these extremely different groups side by side has been really neat.
Well, and I think it just goes to show that you guys are filling a need, right? That you're drawing in these groups that maybe traditionally wouldn't have, had anything to do with one another.
Right.
But because you're filling a need that they have in common, now they're gravitating towards you in a very organic way, which is amazing.
And the diverse ideas and the diverse people is just awesome.
Yes.
I walked in my first day this week on Tuesday, and there's a youngster working there. He's just so hyped and excited. He's a tinkerer, and he's just going, I cannot believe how excited I am about this space. I want to cry. It's drawing, people that have a passion to want to create.
Yes.
Which is super exciting. We have another little success. How long ago was it now we had the breakfast? It was literally only weeks ago. We thought, well, let's let people know that we're open for business and that we're here and that we need to build these communities. So we, in 3 days, pulled off a breakfast event that had 70 people, influencers, investors, innovators, industry, chambers. Mark Welker came from Senator Mike Lee's office. Got to give a huge shout out to our fantastic partners from Mountainside as well, Corey Ivans and Aaron Shields. They create Foundry, so they deliver leadership training that really makes an impact,
Yes,
good.
My favorite thing about Corey and Aaron is they speak engineering, right?
Yes.
So they're kind of a bridge, right? And we're definitely peas in a pod with those two, and we're
Awesome.
we're grateful for them.
You're going to like it. Actually, we need to get a podcast with them and you too. Aaron has a background in
that would be great.
rocket engineering with NASA,
Yes.
and more recently Adobe, and then Corey's also a Adobe background.
We'd love to have him on.
Best salesman ever. Great trainers, great friends. And
I learned.
now partners of ours helping us really build this and make it come to life.
Yeah.
So you'll see a bit more of them.
That's awesome.
Can I sidetrack us a little bit?
Of course.
I was thinking about the word hard tech because people don't understand hard tech. Like you can kind of guess, that's hardware, that's technology, it's where they come together. That makes sense. I wanted to share my definition, and certainly a commonly accepted definition, but not what most people think of initially. So much of Utah is what I call soft tech. Mm-hmm. And my definition of soft tech is often software, but not necessarily. What that means to me is quick to market, right? Like quick to market yesterday, if we could manage it, right? And maybe it stretches out into months, and that's really a grind, but you do it, right? And then on the other side of the spectrum is deep tech, right? And you're very familiar with deep tech because tech transfer, right? Like some of the stuff that you guys make available is 5 and 10 plus years in the making.
Oh, right? And cutting edge, leading edge of research in the space.
Right. Bleeding edge, right? Like most haven't even heard of it type stuff, right? Yes, exactly. Ultra novel. And so my definition of hard tech is in between those two, right? So this means maybe two years to market. There needs to be support and equipment and an ecosystem built around hard tech where we commercialize ideas, but it's not soft tech and it's not deep tech. It's this Goldilocks in between.
Yes, absolutely. And what I tell people all the time, because we deal with this with the deep tech, is that the soft tech, very quick to market, but it has an ecosystem built around it because they have that expectation.
Utah's killer at soft tech.
Yes, exactly. Right? Yeah. And then you have some industries who have figured out some of the deeper hard tech, like pharmaceuticals is a good example of that, where they understand the pipeline and the timeline, and they have systems and structures in place which support some of that. But then you have this uncanny valley of hard tech, which will have an impact on the world, but it doesn't yet have the ecosystem in place to support it. And this is exactly where I see you guys filling in.
And hard tech could be software, though it's commonly software combined with hardware.
Right.
But it's really a time to market.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Very cool. And how has this experience with Make Utah maybe changed your perception of entrepreneurship or informed it? I mean, was there anything that you had coming into this that has been changed by your experience with Make Utah up to this point?
This isn't a direct answer to your question, but it makes me think of is the Utah entrepreneur ecosystem, right? So my experience, moving here from Hawaii, like we both adore Hawaii. In fact, it's even hard for me to talk about it. It's so strange how much I miss Hawaii, right? And I like that Hawaii changed me a little bit. And it took a few years, by the way, but I did change. But Utah is special in all the ways that Hawaii isn't, right? And Hawaii is special in all the way Utah isn't, right? Yes. And so this place is so supportive. Like gathering partners for this has been the easiest. I have 200 partners just waiting for me to call them back. Right. How can we help? What can we do? Let's do this together.
That's an amazing problem to have, by the way.
Yeah, well, it's not just me either. We have a neat and somewhat novel project. I get that. But I've seen others, and it's been that experience. And Vanessa can speak to that too because she's experienced it for the last few months.
Yeah. So I agree. Utah brings everything that Hawaii didn't for me as an entrepreneur. But I think I took my entrepreneurial experience in Hawaii as, not being successful, so I gave up. And I think working in corporate for the last 6 years was fantastic. Yeah. Safe, secure, right? And I didn't really dabble in the space, although I did the invention that I'm working on now, I came up with about a year ago. Right. And you just keep putting it off, right? You're in that corporate grind, right? You're focusing on your job, you're working hard for the big guy and stuff. And I can't tell you how exciting it is. Like, I knew that the business network and the ecosystem here in Utah was awesome because I was in the business network, right? I was in the business ecosystem. I'm on 15 boards and committees and chamber boards, and I have a lot to do with businesses here. And it's great to do business here. Right. But I never saw it from the entrepreneur space. I never saw it from the trying to start something up. Right. I saw a little bit of that. I've been going to Third Thursday for a couple of years, which I love. Another shout out to Ray Smithson. But I can tell you, I felt this passion behind Utah being the startup state, our drive, our motivation, our eagerness to make sure that we are leading as a startup state. And I felt it. I experienced people saying, How can I help you? Who can I introduce you to?
Right.
Can we catch up? Let me get you connected to this person that I know. Like, it's real. I got cold shivers already. That is our startup eco space.
Yes.
And it is so exciting. And, you know, since I've been, I want to encourage people to take time to daydream a little bit. I'm a bit of a daydreamer. Since I've been in this startup space, I have a list of 60 business ideas.
Yeah.
Some of them are hard tech inventions. Some of them are biomed inventions. Like, they're inventions, they're new. And I can't make them all. Like, I have to build this community now of people that want to come and make a difference in the world and build things and make things, because I can't do it all on my own. But I'm so confident in this landscape in Utah that I could bring all of them to life.
Right.
With the right network, with the right connections, with the right resources, the right equipment. Like, how exciting is that?
Yeah. I mean, it blows me away, honestly. Like, it's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, floodgates open. You were talking about here, but what I'm thinking of is when you started those gears turning, like, you just can't turn it off, right?
I can't turn it off. I get up every morning with my cup of coffee and I have my ideas book and I write down a new idea, problem, solution, or an invention every day.
It's amazing.
Sometimes 3 in a day.
Yeah.
I've 60 on the list and it's growing.
Wow.
But it's not just inventions. We forgot to tell you that we will be making sure that we're doing good in our community. Not just with what we're creating with Make Utah, but our give back to community. We will be creating this Engineering for Good movement where we'll be helping with, you know, food insecurity and water insecurity and bridging the digital divide. And something I'm passionate about is bridging the exposure gap, you know, for students and especially girls to have exposure to hard tech and, advanced manufacturing, and exposing and creating interest for students to be thinking about and being confident about careers in this advanced tech space.
That's what changed my life, exposure, right? Growing up, you know, you see a neat project and you suddenly learn something. Oh, that's possible? Yeah. And for me, I saw it in my dad's shop space, right? Yeah. After 10 times getting my mind blown and then 100, I finally decided, like, I guess anything's possible. Yeah. Right? You get there.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
The exposure is so important for students today. I mean, I say probably almost every day, God, I would have been a great engineer. I didn't know what an engineer was when I was a kid. Right. I grew up in a tiny little mining town with 2,000 people. Yeah. Engineers didn't come to our school and talk to us. Right. We didn't tinker. I, built cubby houses and rafts and got golf balls out of the creek, but I didn't know anything about engineering. Right. And
and that exposure is what leads to, creating 60 ideas, writing down an idea every day. You know that it's possible now. And the gears get turning, and just every idea, the things that you thought weren't possible now become possible and become a reality. So I think that's amazing.
I can promise I'm going to work with Shad and we're going to build the space that allows to bring all of my inventions to life. That's really what I want to create.
No, that's great.
There's food ones, there's textile ones, there's biolab ones, there's hard tech ones. And so we will make sure that we'll have this versatile lab situation. Talk to us about all the labs that you dream about.
But bring me back to how we give back to the community after I do it, right?
Yeah.
I want to do a little intro with Claims for a Cause. So, the labs, right? So we're talking about 20,000 square feet, hot and cold metals, right?
Very good.
Electronics, robotics, composites, plastics, right? A full wood shop. Wood is frequently, or wood shop type tools are frequently the easiest way to get like V1 prototypes
great
going.
for that initial prototype where you're looking at form versus the actual function, or even a little bit of function. Yeah.
And what most people don't think of, but is needed in a product development space, is textiles, right? So you need to have access to various sewing machines and materials, right? And two things that are unique about our space is we're going to have a CPG kitchen, right? So it'll be a commissary, and it's for creating food or other products like that are ready for commercializing, right?
Very cool.
I have 5 of those.
And the other thing is, no space like this in the world that I know of does this, is automotive aftermarket product development.
Which is very cool.
Yeah, very cool, right?
I have 2 of those.
And so we're
Just building the space for exactly what you need, right? That's awesome.
So for me, if this was for Shad, it would maybe 80% that, right? But we will reserve some space for 3 lifts, for full paint booth and finishing with powder coating, anodizing, all this different types of finishing.
Awesome. Yeah.
And the automotive.
And can I just say, like, the value behind that in one location? Because I've done projects in the past where you get it cut here and you get it welded there and you send it here for powder coating and it comes back and they mess this up, so you have to go through the process again. So that quick iteration, things in the same location. I mean, I've really caught the vision of what you guys are trying to do. Is I guess what I'm trying to say.
It's so interesting because it's a proximity play. We're most of what we're making available is already available. We're putting it all in one spot and making it ultra accessible.
Yep. No, that's great.
Yeah.
And can I bring us back to claims with the cause?
Yeah.
I mentioned earlier that we are building a new relationship with an entrepreneur that recently had a successful exit of $2.2 billion 2 years ago.
Fantastic.
He's recently moved into Utah. He's a family, I'm connected with his family and I worked with his daughter. She's a killer. And we've been collaborating on a pretty substantial AI project that we'll be launching pretty soon. We're calling it Claims for a Cause.
Okay.
And we're partnering with this entrepreneur to help businesses get access to funding that they're entitled to through class action claims.
Oh, very nice.
There's a fairly major one on right now with the Visa, MasterCard, overcharging interest rates and interchange fees. And that's a $5.5 billion claim.
Right.
So we're collaborating with this.
If you don't know it exists, right, you miss out on the upside.
Most people don't know it exists.
Right.
So for businesses that have owned a business between 2004 and 2019, have the ability to make a claim against that funding of $5.5 billion.
Yeah.
And our new entrepreneur partner has done some stuff in that space before, and particularly with his own business. So he knows about the class action lawsuits, and if the money's not claimed, usually it's donated to a charity.
Right.
Well, this one's different. The funds that aren't claimed, after 4 February this year, that's the end deadline, the cutoff for making these claims. So the remaining funds are divvied up between all of those that have made a claim.
Oh.
So we really want to partner and spin wheels on reaching out to as many people as we can to, particularly businesses and non-profits in Utah, to submit a claim.
Make sure they're aware of this opportunity for them.
And hopefully they'll think about donating to a cause, donating back to Make Utah, for getting it on their radar, money that they probably might not have had access to, but help us, bring Make Utah to life. So watch this space on that. And,
and this is a platform where any nonprofit or business for that matter, but we're focused on nonprofit, can use this for their cause. And so it's pretty neat. It's a pretty neat way of giving back to community, getting access to funds, and supporting the local businesses, because those are the merchants that have been taking those payments, and supporting the local causes that they care about all at once. We're thrilled about this.
And we love also that, shout out to Josh Hardman, who owns Personify, who founded Personify at iHub, which is a new AI platform that's adding personalisation to AI interaction and engagement through video and personalisation of text messages. So Josh is killer. We're super excited about this team that we're building.
It's important for our group that we use AI for this, because we're going to change the public's perception, and AI will get you your money, right? We're going to rely on that, and it is a hurdle, but it's a hurdle that we're going to cross, and where AI is going to be the hero, and these various community leaders and nonprofits are going to be the hero that are going to put this out into our local community.
Yeah. And people are going to trust AI through this program. And there's more of that to come, and it's just lovely that our founder partner is really wants to give back to community, wants to give back to building stronger communities, and this is just such a great way for nonprofits to be able to get these sorts of unfound money opportunities on the radar of businesses, and in turn, businesses get to help them.
Yeah.
It's going to be the new crowdfunding of the future, so watch this space.
That's great.
It's powerful. You'll see when you see it.
No, I'm excited to kind of follow that. That'll be awesome. So we're running a little short on time here, but before we close, what piece of advice would you give to maybe a startup entrepreneur, let's say in Utah, right? Because that's our main audience right now. But what would you say is maybe on the horizon, or what would you say would be a good next step for them to do starting on this entrepreneurial journey?
I want to encourage entrepreneurs, visionaries, daydreamers, engineers, people who have a great idea that they want to bring to life, that there is a strong, substantial, wonderful, and exciting ecosystem here that will help you bring these ideas to life. And I think if you're still trying to find what that idea is, you know you want to be an entrepreneur, you're not quite sure what to do or what you want to bring to life, I mean, reach out to BYU's Tech Transfer.
Always.
Come to Make Utah. We've got a rapidly growing list of business ideas. But, you know, maybe it's just something that you're passionate about. Maybe it's an experience that you want to change for yourself and others that becomes a solution that many people around the world want. Right. So if you don't have an idea, follow your passion. Passion will overcome all of the hurdles that you face as well, and will allow people to get excited about what you're doing. And just don't give up. Yeah. And even if you fail, take the lessons that you learn from those experiences and leverage them for learning in the future. Lessons learned, we say in the military. Yeah. And just like daydream and take a deep breath and dive in. It's exciting.
That's great. And Shad, what about you?
It's a big question. I decided, she spoke about passion a little bit, and we talked about all these ideas. And so which one do you follow? And because each one takes your precious time and energy and dollars, right?
Yes.
So one of the values of Make Utah, right, written down, is personal professional value alignment, right? So I'm a Christian, for example. So if I'm working on a make money project that lines up with some personal values I have as a Christian, I'm just going to work at it differently, and I'm going to stick to it longer, right? And so, and it doesn't have to be that. Your personal values can be something else, but it's just different. If it matters to you this way, and it matters to you, and if you can line those up, it's hard to do. Yeah. Much of the world perhaps doesn't do that, right? Or you don't have the opportunity to do that. Yeah. But as an entrepreneur, as an engineer, and really everybody, if you're brave enough, if you can line up those values, then you can find projects that you'll stick with for the long run. Yes. Because it's really easy to find something that you love and then like squirrel, right? Distracted, right?
Yeah, so find those things that line up internally, and that's going to help you stick to it. No, I love that.
And we have access to so many wise people that will help you prioritize.
Right.
If you have 5 ideas, you know, you can nut out what's the lowest hanging fruit, you know, what's going to be quick and fast, bring it to market fast, and then I can work on that one, or
and open up other opportunities, or maybe because of
that one doesn't have legs. Like if it doesn't have legs, if people are saying it doesn't have legs.
And that mentorship is incredibly important when you're starting out. Yeah. I love that. Okay, what's the best way for people to get a hold of you as they're looking to reach out to Make Utah, maybe be a part of what you're doing, volunteer? I mean, is your website the best place to go?
We do have a website that I'm not very proud of, but it's something, right? Okay. It's a placeholder,
It's evolving.
And you can use that to find our address. Okay. You can use that to email us. It's makeutah.org.
Okay,
makeutah.org.
Yeah, we'll include a link just in the description so people can get to it easier.
Yeah, and so, but as far as showing off the space and sharing a little bit more of our vision, you can start there, and it'll get us an email, and then we can do more.
Yeah,
great.
Yeah. Come and check us out. Come for a tour. Come meet some of the people. We're going to be creating and hosting a lot of events soon. So events that connect people, events for learning, events for problem solving. But I did just want to give a shout out to, you talked about mentoring, and just would be remiss if we didn't give a shout out to the 350 and growing phenomenal mentors in the iHub network.
Yes.
And thanks to Corbin, Make Utah entrepreneurs also have access to that wonderful network of mentors as well.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, thank you so much for being here. Really enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you. Yeah, it was
Thank you.
great.
Thanks for the opportunity.